Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are about to have our flyby of Eve here, and that's going to put us into this resulting orbit, which seems absolutely fine. The real question is, what is our return trip to Kerbal going to look like in terms of timing? We will find out. We need to keep an eye on our amount of food, of course, and we've eaten roughly a third of our food, a little over a third. And for now, I want to warp about just into our Eve encounter. So let's warp here. And we're just going to do our science from high above Eve. Of course, we're never going to get to low Eve orbit. This is going to remain high Eve orbit the entire way through. Where even is Eve? There it is. Hi, Eve. Excellent. So Jeb and Bill are here, and we're going to gather all of the science that we can. Now, we don't have a scientist here, which is sad, but it's entirely my own fault. We're going to grab all of this science and the magnetometer report as well. Then we're going to collect the science here. I'm going to try... Well, we can't pull science out of anything... Well, it's going to be awkward. We can't reset experiments, right? We can collect all of this data. So that means that we can grab another gravity scan, and that can be stored where it is. Now, I'm going to have Bill EVA here, because we need to do an EVA report. But I'm also interested in having him come down over here. I want to see if he can remove the data from the gravioli detector. Obviously, what he cannot do is reset our run once experiments, right? He cannot do that. But I don't know if he can remove the data here. And if he can, oh man, okay, there we go. If he can remove the data, that'll give us, yes, he can. It can only be externally controlled by a scientist. Okay, that's fine. He can take that data, though, and that means that this data can be stored in our capsule. Just trying to be careful to not break our solar panels here. Okay, there we go. So now we can grab that. That's an additional 0.8 science. It's not a lot of science. We're going to get the bulk of our science from just that initial test. So that's absolutely fine. Now, we need to be thinking about our return trip at this juncture. We're going to set Kerbal as our target, and we can see the descending node was back here. So if we were to burn at this periapsis, hypothetically, and we burned prograde, that should push our apoapsis this way, right? In theory. Yes. Now the question is, where is Kerbal when we're here? Now, our inclination is wrong, and we're going to need to change that inclination somewhat. Okay, so that tells us where Kerbal is. We will be here, and Kerbal will be here. So this is going to be too fast. That said, this inclination change is interesting, but I don't think it's optimally efficient. I think we should probably just hang out in this orbit, come out here, and do our changes out this way. So we're going to be, like, out over here, right? Once we escape, we're going to be out this direction. Our resulting orbit is going to be here. So if we added a maneuver here, this is not an ideal location for the inclination change, but it's just going to get worse. So we don't have to have this be perfect, just good enough. We can move this forward to here so that our inclination change is now correctly done about there. I don't know. It kind of depends on where the resulting position for Kerbal ends up being, right? So if we did the burn about, say, hypothetically here, and we tossed in the retrograde component, or not the retrograde component, we would need to be in the correct orbit. We would absolutely need to be in the correct orbit. I'm just trying to determine how many phasing orbits we're going to need here. But let's go to the ascending node here. Let's put in our inclination change of 2.4 degrees. So that's 451.3 meters per second. Then on that resulting orbit, if we were to put in a maneuver approximately here and push this out. Okay, so we can see that Kerbal would be here and we would be here. So we need to delay this burn quite a long time, like out over this direction-ish. And even then, you can see we're off by over 90 degrees. This would only be 451.3 meters. No, this would be about 1,500 kilometers per second. This would be about 1,500 meters per second in total. So that's absolutely fine. That would burn off all of this remaining fuel. I'm just wondering what happens if we do our inclination change here, which is going to be less effective, to be clear. So you can see we can get it down somewhat, and I'd like to do this maybe a little earlier. That's 0.9. Okay, that's far worse on the effectiveness to do it here. So let's change the timing on this. That's a 0.4. Okay, I saw a 0.4 right around here. That's about the best we can do on that front. So 0.4 is probably enough to get an encounter. So if we did this, this would be almost twice as much on the inclination as it should be, and it wouldn't get us to where we wanted to be necessarily. But I'm just wondering, what if we did this relatively earlier and we did a big radial burn? Hang on. Okay, that timing is not ideal. But if we burned radially like this, how much DV is that? That's not what I wanted there. Okay, so that's a lot of DV. This is more than we should budget for this. No doubt about that. So we're not in a great conjunction. We know this. And if we're going to have to coast anyway, our best bet would be to coast until we go to the ascending node. So that would mean that we would do an inclination change burn here where it's nice and cheap. And it would be something like that. And then we're going to have to do a coast burn until at least somewhere around here. But even then, it's going to be very problematic, right? I think we would have to wait in orbit, wouldn't we? Yeah, we'd have to wait in orbit. So if we did that, no radial burn, and we waited in orbit, and then we grab... Come on. Why is it not letting me move this? There we go. We then waited until we're a bit more like out here. Man. This is approximately optimally bad, to be honest. So that's reasonably fine, but we can toss in a little bit of radial to have this be a decent encounter like that. So we can see that that would be about 1,500 meters per second there. So the total budget for this return would be somewhere around 2,000 meters per second. So that would give us about another 1,000 for maneuvers at Kerbal. And we can dial in our periapsis there somewhat. That would be absolutely fine to do. When would this occur? In approximately 2 years. We're about 2 years into this. So that's fine then. We should have a third food left when we reach Kerbal with this return plan. Honestly, I like it. We should have a third food left and about 1 kilometer per second for braking maneuvers once we get there. So then we would pin open this periapsis, and this secondary maneuver here, which we're going to remake, we would definitely bring down. But we know that that's going to be almost, well, it's going to be like a full orbit and then almost a second full orbit. So that's a lot of phasing. No doubt about that. Well, let's align to this node and we should go ahead and say goodbye to Eve because we're not staying here. We're just flying right on by. We also completed our contract parameter to fly by Eve. I don't think our contract actually requires us to return from Eve, but we're going to do that for the purpose of science. Gravity scan. Ooh, right. We should actually reset this then. 100 science is far better than 0.8 science. So I'm going to review this data. We're going to reset the experiment. We're going to grab this 100 science, and that science can be stored here. And then we can grab an additional 9.1 science. We can see if there's any additional data that we can get there as we go through. When are we going to have our exit? That's going to be in 6 days. We're probably going to have additional biome data. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to review this data, I'm going to delete this, and we'll grab this on the way out right before we leave. So we're just going to sail on through here for a few days. Where is Eve? Here's Eve. Okay, so we're over the lowlands right now, so we're going to grab this, and we're going to collect all. I want to just pin this open. Okay. And let's see what other biomes we get here. That's shallows. Beautiful. What else do we get? Western Sea. Excellent. Any other biomes? That's shallows again. That's lowlands. I'm going to change our minimum science threshold to be 10. Or 9.5. Okay. There we go. So now it's only going to bring us out of our time warp if it's a new biome. That'll be perfect. So that's the Eastern Sea. Let's grab that. Collect all. What else do we have here? Crater Lake. I like it. Okay, back into warp. Peaks. Done. This is a lot of science that we're getting out of this. Foothills. Beautiful. Anything else here? Explodium Sea. Magnificent. Okay, that might be all. Let's hop back here, and I just want to keep an eye on this. Okay, so we just want to grab something before we escape, right? Because we want to have that extra 9.1 science. So that'll be absolutely wonderful. And we're just waiting for this escape here. I don't really want to be on 10,000x because that feels a little too fast. I might miss our escape. I think we have all the biomes we're going to get in this inclination. So we could just grab what we're going to grab and call it good. I'll do that for now. And if we happen to miss another biome, I will be sad, but let's see. 0.8, 9.1. 0.8, 9.1. Yeah, we could get an extra 0.8 science by doing another grab of the science, but I don't think I care that much. 0.8 is barely any. So this is fine, and we're going to escape here. Okay, we should be... Let's see, we're in space high over the sun. Perfect. So now what we need to do is we need to go to our inclination change. So we'll keep an eye on our food, and let's go. So I think we'll have enough food to do this. It's going to be a little on the spicy side. I think there's no doubt about that. But I think it'll be okay. We're definitely seeing our oxygen go down a little bit, but that's expected. Our water is absolutely infinite. No issue there. So this burn is going to be 455.8 meters per second. Let's just go ahead and warp forward a little, but almost overshot it. Now we're burning. Excellent. So we're getting our inclination change to match that of Kerbal. And once we are in inclination, or rather in plane with Kerbal, it'll be much easier for us to find a rendezvous, although this is a terrible conjunction to do so. It is absolutely terrible. So we're probably going to have to warp quite a bit, but I'll see if we can maybe find something that's a little bit better in terms of timing. But we know it's going to be rough. Okay, so we're just about done with this inclination change. Let's get that last little bit here. We'll call that good. Okay, we should be at 0.0. That is correct. So now we are in plane with Kerbal instead of being roughly in plane with Eve. So let's see what would happen if we were to burn here. This is going to be wildly off, and you can see, yeah, this is off by a significant margin. This is just indicative of poor timing. So if we bring this around over this direction, it's still bad timing. We're going to have to wait for a conjunction, which is exactly what we would expect. So this means tossing in an orbit like that. And then we can also come over here, toss in another orbit, and we can wait a little longer if we wanted to save some fuel. So this return trip here would be approximately as good as we're going to get. So you can see this is a pretty high periapsis here. This is definitely waiting a little bit longer, but this is a much, much better transfer. And this would then be 1 year, 288 days. Okay. I think it's viable. I'm just thinking here, that would be like 1.5 years, right? Or a little over 1.5 years from where we are. And we're a little over 2 years in. This is how much we've eaten in 2 years, roughly half. So this should be a viable amount of time. I want to dial in this periapsis, and we might need to tweak the timing on it a little bit. Okay. So let's just continue to dial in the periapsis here. We're pretty high up right now, and we want to just bring that way, way down. I'm just using the scroll wheel here. Okay, we're going to have to adjust the timing again. I saw here. Yeah. We could toss in a little bit of radial if we wanted to. That would be easier than adjusting the timing at this time. There we go. And then this would end up being... Oh, that's going to be awful. I'm going to remove that little bit of radial there, and I am going to adjust the timing. But this is going to be interesting. Okay. So we've got it here, and if we wanted to dial this in... Man, we got to bring this further. Okay. It's so sensitive. So I think that there is... Let's try bringing this to 305 days and see what happens. That took it to 30 days. Hang on. Is my numlock off? No. Okay. Well, that's awkward. I guess we'll have to do it this way. Let's see about... Well, we gotta be up over here. Awkward. So I think we're going to have to do it radially. So a little bit of radial, a little bit of retrograde, and that's just going to play off of each other at this point. We really need to adjust the timing on it. But it's so sensitive here. The timing needs to be very, very precise. I wonder if normal would get us anywhere. Actually, it does. That's good. That's really nice. Okay, so in that case, what happens if we get rid of that radial? Nope. Okay, we'll have it be about here. It's a very small amount of radial and normal, so I'm very okay with that. 62 kilometers sounds good. Let's put this onto the node. This is going to be in 1 year, 151 days, and you can see this is going to be in 1 year and 275 days. From when we are right now. So, awkward timing here for this to happen, but we should have enough food, according to our back-of-the-envelope calculations. Let's find out. So we're cruising on around. This is going to be a pretty long warp here because we need to do another full orbit from here. So that's going to be a little awkward, and I'm not going to make you sit through it. We'll be back once we're near the end of this warp. Okay, so pretty much 2 full phasing orbits completed here, and as you can see, our food is at 472. So I think we're doing well. We've got 123 days, in theory, until we get home. That should be the same day we return home on, unless we have to do multiple aerobrake passes. I have no idea what our trajectory there looks like. Very polar, but overall, that is nice. That should not be difficult to do a braking burn. Okay, so with that in mind, and we're going to fine-tune this as we come in with a radial retrograde burn, almost for sure. But at this point, we're about 18 seconds away from our homeward bound burn. Now, I don't think this is low enough to aero capture us, which is why we're going to have to radial retrograde burn, but we've still got 2685 meters per second in this thing. We've got a lot of delta V. So 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. And we're going home. Excellent. So we're still going to have fuel in these tanks, so that's very, very good for us. You can see that our food is dry out here now. So we wouldn't be throwing away too much life support if we were to ditch these, but we've still got fuel in them, so this is absolutely okay. We were able to take a relatively fuel-efficient path, although it wasn't a time-efficient path. That's for sure. But the sheer amount of food that we brought along has enabled this, so that looks perfect. So we're just going to cruise on through here, and we will see how closely we manage to hit this and get our actual periapsis. We want to be quite precise with this if we can be. So let's just get ourselves into this final orbit here. We just need to accelerate right on up. About 10 meters per second left and 5 meters per second, just slowing it right on down. 4, 3, 2, yeah, I just want to be very precise here. Okay. We'll call that good. Where are we? Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to see. So now what we need to do is we need to come in here, and sometime just before this periapsis, we're going to add a maneuver here. And this is going to be a retrograde burn. And you can see that right there is 411 meters per second. So that would get us to a point where we're captured, and we would eventually come down to the surface. Our periapsis would only be 59 kilometers, so that would take us quite a long time, and we might run out of food before we get there. But for now, what I want to do is I want to bring this in, and I want to have this periapsis be sitting somewhere around 30 kilometers. I'm not going to be too picky on where we come in at, but somewhere around 30 kilometers for the periapsis is ideal. So we know we have 1,838 meters per second to do this burn, and that's absolutely wonderful. So what's our apoapsis here? Oh, that's very manageable. Yeah, this is an excellent burn here. And the fact of the matter is, we've still got another 800 meters per second in the tank here. So that's beautiful. I'm just pulling some additional distance out of the apoapsis here. And this is actually fine. And we'd still have another, what, 700 meters per second here? Yeah, somewhere around there. So we can use that for a landing burn if we feel like we want to cushion our landing. Beautiful. We've got so much fuel here. So that's absolutely fine. And the reason why we had so much fuel, of course, is because we were planning to take a more efficient path time-wise, but our food calculations indicate that this is fine. So let's go ahead and warp forward for now until we are about to enter the Kerbal encounter. So it's going to be 115 days, and let's just cruise on forward. And of course, we're going to want to be aligned to this node. No doubt about that. We're going to be ditching these tanks out over here. That's going to throw away some of our water and oxygen, but we shouldn't need much oxygen. And water we know we're infinite on, so that's not a concern. Keeping an eye on the food, we'll be absolutely fine on the food. So that looks great. So we are about to enter the sphere of influence of Kerbal here. You can see that's going to be in, well, about 3 more days. Let's go ahead and warp here for now. We're just drifting on towards Kerbal. Excellent. We'll orient around, but it is about time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to do our radial retrograde, not really re-entry burn. This is going to be just more of an orbital assertion burn. We're going to assert our orbit. At this point, we're just kind of flexing on the orbit, I feel like. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.